Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I'm your host, Patsun, and today we're gonna be taking a look at r/relationship advice, where OP's ex-wife had the audacity to ask him to take her back after she abandoned him and their son for many years. Let's begin. Our first story was posted by a throwaway Reddit account.
Seeking advice on how to handle the situation. Characters for this story. Me, 34, my ex-wife, 35, let's call her X, my neighbor, AP, my neighbor's wife, 37, let's call her M. My wife and I married in 2009. We had our baby in 2010. In November 2010, while she was asleep, a message popped up on her phone and was a flirty message. I checked her phone, and it was from our neighbor. I went through every single message, which included sexting, sharing nudes, and even planned meetups at hotels. This was going on from the first week into our marriage. I felt like my world crumbled in front of me. I took screenshots of every message and saved them on my phone. The next day, I contacted M and let her know about the affair. They were married for 4 years and had their first baby at almost the exact same time we had ours. I confronted my wife and told her that I was going to give her a divorce. She started crying and everything else, but I did not consider it. I also did a paternity test on our son because the affair timeline was the same as the conception date. After 2 days, when I came home from work, our baby was crying in our bed and X was nowhere to be seen. Then I found a letter from her telling me that she did not love me, she had left with AP, and not to contact them. I knew this was coming, but I didn't believe that a mother could leave her child, who was about 6 months old, alone and run off with her lover. I then went to M's house. She had received the same letter from her husband. I felt sorry for her as she was going through postpartum depression, had her baby just a few months ago, and was left alone. Also, the paternity test result came back and he was my son. I tried to contact X's family, but they also didn't know where she was and were shocked by her behavior. Her father even said that if she ever came back, she would not be allowed to enter their house. They basically disowned her. M was very supportive. She began coming to my home to watch the kids and even breastfed both of them, hers and mine. As time passed, we were like a family. My son called her mom and had known only her as mom. We also decided to go on dates. We got engaged a year later and married in 2013. We had our first child in 2015. We often discussed things about our exes and how we were often disrespected by them. We were a happy family. In 2018, when my son accidentally saw a picture of my ex, a picture after birth, so it included X, me, and him, we decided to tell him that his birth mother, X, had died in a car accident years ago, and that M took care of him since he was 6 months old. Fast forward to 2 days ago, I received an anonymous email. I opened it and it read, "I want to see my son and want my family back. We are not divorced yet." I knew it was X. I showed this to M. M started freaking out and asked me if I would take her back. I calmed her down and told her that she was an ugly past and I would never leave her. I would never take X back. Now I am confused about what to do. I will definitely not take her back, but should I let her meet my son or not? Should I take away my son's opportunity to have a connection with his birth mother? Edit, thank you for the responses. I missed a lot of details to tell you guys. First, I have divorced her before marrying M. I think she doesn't know, as she was nowhere to be located. Second, I had full custody of my son, as X was nowhere in the picture, but now she is back, so I don't know if my full custody will be maintained or not. Now for OP's update. Thank you for the responses. A lot has happened since last time. Also, I didn't want to post the update as many people in the comments thought it was fake, but to this day, I am getting messages asking for an update, so I decided to update you all. So let's start by saying this. We didn't require court or a lawyer. Some of you claimed that she would have no parental rights over my son as she had abandoned us years ago. To confirm the claim, I contacted my friend, who is a lawyer, and confirmed that she could face a heavy fine, termination of parental rights, and jail. I told him about the time period of abandonment and asked what were the chances of winning my case. He told me that if a parent fails to physically contact a child for over a year, 99% of the time, he or she is given termination of parental rights. I sighed in relief after hearing those words. I also joined therapy with my son so that I can tell him the truth about his biological mother. As I wanted to find out why she contacted me after 10 years, I messaged her father, who is still a best friend of mine and gives me some good advice, to ask whether X had contacted his family or not. It turns out that she had contacted her sister for money from time to time for 10 years, but now her sister is not willing to help her as she was asking for a bit more money. I asked him about her conditions and whether introducing her to my son would be a good idea or not. He answered by saying, She just has a minimum wage job and lives in a small apartment with 3 roommates. Hearing this, I felt bad for her, but she earned it. He said that she would have a bad influence on our son, so it's better not to introduce him to X. Next, I called her sister and asked her what their conversations were like over the past 10 years. She told me everything. How X contacted her only for money because after paying rent, she had no money left for groceries and other utilities. X never asked about my son, only for money. I asked her about the relationship between X and AP, to which she replied, he is in prison for sexual assault since 2015. I don't know why, but I felt happy upon hearing this news. I asked her whether X knew about the divorce or not. She said X has no idea about the divorce and still thinks we are legally married. I asked her to tell X about everything, divorce, child custody, my new family, and that she has no rights over my son. I told everything to M, and she was a bit surprised by X's behavior. She never thought that a mother could be so careless towards her own child. She was shocked to hear the news about AP. It has been 30 days, and X has not contacted us. Family counseling is going great, and we have decided to legally adopt one another's kids. I don't think X will contact us as her sister might have told her about her position legally and that she would just waste money by hiring an attorney.
First of all, OP, telling your son a lie instead of just telling the truth about his bio mom has got to be one of the stupidest things you could have done in that situation. Secondly, is even remotely considering introducing her to your son. She abandoned him when he was only 6 months old. She just upped and left him all alone so she could be with her lover. Now she wants her family back because she's living a train wreck of a life? Hell no. Keep that woman as far away from your son as possible. Our second story was posted by Reddit user The Music Fella.
I live in Asia and just purchased a new house. Now, the previous owners were family friends who needed cash urgently and haven't been living in my country for nearly 3 years. So I got it for a great price in the middle of the capital city. The sale was finalized at the start of this month, and I moved in right after. The house was definitely a fixer-upper, as the previous owners had left mid-renovation and the main door was locked with just a padlock, not even a door lock. The house had no gate, meaning anyone could just walk right on in. The first day I moved in, someone's bike was parked in the garage. I just parked it on the road on the same day I had a gate installed. An angry man was knocking on my gate later, and I didn't bother answering, but through my window, I could see him giving up and taking the bike after 15 minutes. So already I wasn't digging the neighborhood, but I didn't have any incidents after that, aside from people not knowing that this was no longer an abandoned house. So my gate was blocked more often than never, but no parking sign on my gate fixed that issue. Last week, I was having a shower in my bathroom, and I noticed my water pressure was lower than usual. I also heard my next-door neighbor's water pump going. Now, this neighbor, an old guy, lived in a 3-storied house, the first being the lowest and the one he lived in. The other 2 floors were rented out to tenants. This guy wasn't happy about the house being sold and voiced many concerns to my friends, the previous owners. He was super angry about it, and my friends did warn me, but I'm a 6-foot-tall guy with 3 dogs. No way he was doing anything. And yep, he didn't. So with this living situation, a water pump is needed to pump water to the tanks on the roof, since the public supply's pressure is not enough to get it up 3 stories. Now, I heard the water pump going and immediately was suspicious. Sure, coincidences exist, but it wouldn't hurt to check it out. I waited till his pump turned off and then turned on different taps in the house. Sure enough, the pressure was back to normal. This made me even more suspicious. But if he was stealing water, it also made sense. The water bills had been going up over the years. This house wasn't lived in, but the house also had some water leaks. So it was chalked up to that, even if the bills were too high to be caused just by leaks. Now it's starting to make sense. At some point in the last 3 years, this old mister thought he'd save the cost of paying for water and waltzed into the property and is siphoning water from my lines. I couldn't find where exactly he was siphoning water from, but after checking my pressure multiple times, I was pretty sure. So I sat on it for a few days, thinking if I should confront him, go the legal path, or just let it be. Now, water in my country is very cheap. My total bill, even with washing 3 animals, washing a car every week, and watering my garden only costs like $5 per month, even with the neighbor also stealing some of it. But it wasn't about how much I was paying or who was paying for it. It's about entitled old people who think that they're deserving of using other people's resources without paying for it and then getting away with it. It didn't sit right with me, and I really wanted to teach him a lesson. What I did was really simple. I just turned off my water from the mains. I wouldn't have to break into his property, nor would I be breaking any laws. It was the best way of getting back at him without needing to even lift a muscle. So on Monday, just 4 days ago, I waited till the pump flicked on and turned off the supply. Now, the way household tanks work in my country is that there's a ball valve in the tank which detects the level of water and turns on the pump. If the level doesn't increase, the valve stays open, which electronically sends a signal to the pump to stay on until the level gets to a point at which the valve closes and also shuts off the pump. However, the level wasn't increasing, and anyone knows that starving a pump of water isn't a good idea. This way, my expectation was that I'd burn out his pump and cause issues with his tenants. What I didn't account for is that his pump running constantly would mess up the fuses by constantly drawing power overnight and absolutely destroy his wiring. If he had decided to upgrade his household wiring to a more modern standard, this would have been prevented. This house clearly still had 90s era wiring. At around 3 a.m., I heard all residents in the house waking up and talking in hushed voices about why just their house in the neighborhood didn't have power or water. I found out about the power part because the tenants devolved into shouting at their landlord. Our tenant protection laws are very important, and power and water are classed as essential even on a state level. Cutting those services is grounds for lawsuits unless due to weather or some other unavoidable reason. In this case, the landlord is responsible for keeping the house wiring up to date and in good condition, alongside the supply of water. So the tenants were not happy, and one of them immediately moved out 2 days later when it was informed that water and power would not be returning the very same day this happened. Both tenants on the 2 floors lodged a complaint with the police, and if a person is in clear breach of laws, the police have the authority to fine or penalize the person without a court judgment. It can be challenged in court if the person thinks that they were unfairly penalized, but they still have to pay the fines and will only be refunded if and when the court finds the fines unlawful. So now the landlord lost both tenants and has to pay a fine of $500, which is a lot of money in our country. He also has to refund the security deposits of both tenants and cannot rent out until both issues are fixed, which will cost him more money. As of right now, he's moving out on Sunday to his daughter's place since he cannot afford to live alone. The tenants were his only source of income, and he's a retired mechanic, so he has no other income. He did find out why the motor kept drawing power, overloaded the wiring, and burned out. He came by to my gate and asked me if I turned off my water, and I said, oh yeah, my tank had a new leak on a pipe, and I turned it off till the next day until the plumber came by to fix the issue. Y'all, the look on his face. He kept a straight one, but I just knew he was holding back. He just said, oh, okay, and went back inside. Not sure if he knows I know, but I don't care because he can't do anything. I'm getting a plumber down next week to correct my plumbing and remove any pipes that leave my property. So I got rid of my water issue and a neighbor who could potentially be a pain in the ass by simply flicking a tap off. 2 birds, 1 stone, I'd say. TLDR. Bought an abandoned house. Neighbor was siphoning water from my supply. Turned off my water supply when the motor was running. Motor burned out the wiring in his house and cut off water and power to him and his tenants. Tenants lodged police complaints and the landlord got fined, is now destitute, and forced to move in with his daughter.
Well played, OP. Especially managing to keep a straight face when he asks you about turning the water off. Look man, just an advice from someone who owns a rental property. If you can afford it, you should make him an offer for the house. Having an income property right next door, but not actually sharing walls with your tenants is an excellent opportunity. Plus, you don't have to pay the plumber to change your water pipes anymore. Since the house is in the shit right now, you can take that into account when making an offer. And maybe he's desperate enough to actually sell it to you. Viewer support is the best way for me to remain independent and continue bringing you these daily videos, which will always be here on my channels for you to watch absolutely free. So please consider subscribing to me on Rumble and on YouTube. Both will be linked in the description box down below. Thanks for listening everyone. If you even somewhat enjoyed today's story, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you really like it, consider subscribing to PattSun to never miss a future upload. Stay strong.